and welcome to Pink Paradox Reads. I'm Lisa, aka Pink Paradox. I read books, I watch horror movies, and I unbox stuff that has to do with books and horror movies. In this video, I'll be talking about 4 wintry books that I've recently read. Let's get into it. Now, if you caught my previous videos on Christmas horror, you might remember that December is my favorite month, but winter is my least favorite season. I think a lot of that has to do with expectation versus reality. In my mind, I picture winter as, starry skies over a frozen, snowy landscape. And then, this is winter in Bergen, where I live. Just more and colder rain. Honestly, I just want to hibernate until March. In lieu of that, though, I do get my winter fix through fiction, and I've got 4 books that I want to talk about today that I've read recently that all fit the bill of that either snowy, wintry landscape or just snowy landscape. First up is the aptly titled Snow by Ronald Malfi, and this is a book that I have been wanting to read for quite a long time. I remember Rachel talking about this quite a while ago. I think that might actually have been while she was still on the Books in the Freezer podcast. Snow was very hard to get hold of for a very long time, but then that title and I think several other Ronald Malfi titles got reissued last year, so they are now available in paperback form and also on Kindle. And I believe on Scribd, if you have a subscription to Scribd, you can find Ronald Malfi's older books and also his latest release there. Snow is a action-packed monster-type horror book. We meet this guy who is stuck in an airport in Chicago. He is trying to get to his estranged son for Christmas, but there is a horrible snowstorm and all the flights are canceled, and he manages to rent a car with this woman that he meets at the airport and also an elderly couple, and they make their way west. On their way, they run into a man who claims that he can't find his daughter. His daughter is missing, and they set out to try and help this guy, but he's acting really, really strange. There's something wrong with him. And all of a sudden, he just sets out into the night. The passengers of the car have no idea what just hit them, but they end up in this town, which is seemingly deserted. At this point, the snowstorm is just off the hook. Their car is busted, and they're trying to go into this town to get some help. But yeah, the town is seemingly deserted, except that it's not. It is full of people who go into 2 categories. The ones that are fighting for their lives, and the other ones who have been taken over by this mysterious, monstrous entity that seems to have something to do with the snow all around them. Snow is a really fast-paced book. The plot never lags, in my opinion. This is like a real page-turner. You can read this in 1 or 2 sittings. I was not very into the characters of this book. I felt like the characterization was seemingly overly negative at times. I had a really hard time sort of connecting with these characters, even like the main 2 characters that I guess we're supposed to have, a connection with. In my opinion, there are just too many characters. They are introduced and they disappear, and yeah, we just don't really get much of a feel for them. There are similarities to The Mist by Stephen King here, and Snow also reminded me of the horror movie A Quiet Place. This is a type of story that we have seen many times before, but it's the kind of story that really never gets out of style. Snow by Ronald Malfi was a quick, fun read for those long wintry nights. I ended up giving it 3 stars. Then I've got Sherlock Holmes and the 3 Winter Terrors by James Lovegrove. I featured Sherlock Holmes and the Christmas Demon in my Christmas horror video. Check that out if you haven't. I was so enamored with that book that I was really, really excited when I saw that this was out. This is I'm not going to say a follow-up to Christmas Demon. It does take place sometime after. But these stories are all set in winter, and they are linked in a way, which becomes more and more obvious as you read on. Once again, I'm absolutely loving this cover and design. This is what it looks like on the inside. And then you have these really gorgeous end papers here. Once again, Titan Books slaying it with the book design. As in the Christmas Demon, there are seemingly supernatural things going on in the 3 Winter Terrors. And of course, Sherlock Holmes is famously skeptical of all things supernatural. So we'll just have to read and find out just what is going on here. The first story is set in 1889 at a boys' prep school in the Kent marshes, where a pupil is found drowned in a pond. Could this be the fulfillment of a witch's curse from over 200 years earlier? Story number 2 is set in 1890. A wealthy man dies of a heart attack at his London townhouse. Was he really frightened to death by ghosts? And the third and final terror is set in 1894. A body is discovered in the dark woods near a Surrey County manor, hideously ravaged. Is the culprit a cannibal, as evidence suggests? These Sherlock Holmes stories are historical fiction written by a contemporary author, so I have no problem with the language in this one. I tend to have a bit of an issue sometimes with historical fiction that is from its time period. I feel like I do always learn new words when I read these books though, and that's really fun. I did not think that 3 Winter Terrors was quite up there in enjoyment level wise with the Christmas Demon, but I still really, really enjoyed it. It is absolutely perfect for this time of year. I gave it 4 stars. Then we have The Nesting by C.J. Cooke, and once again, gorgeous cover. This really reeled me in, combined with the fact that this story is actually set in Norway. It's set in Møre og Romsdal, which is the best county because that's where I'm from. And Hjørundfjord, the beautiful, beautiful Hjørundfjord. So the promise of the Norwegian setting and Norwegian folklore really drew me to this book. And The Nesting starts off on a really, really dark note. It actually starts off with a suicide attempt, so warning for that. Our main character, Lexi, she's recovering from her ordeal at the beginning of the book. She struggles mentally. She is thrown out of her apartment by her boyfriend, who it turns out has been seeing her best friend. So yeah, you really feel like this girl needs a break. Amidst her struggling, she finds herself on a train and she overhears these 2 girls who are talking about, one of them has been offered a job as a nanny in Norway. And she's like, yeah, I think I'm gonna go for it. And Lexi's just eavesdropping. Is like, wow, nannying in Norway. That sounds great. But this other girl who's with the girl who's been offered the nannying position, she's like, no, you can't leave me here. I'm pregnant. I need you. Lexi sneakily goes and gets this girl's details. She takes like pictures of the nanny ad and everything. And she actually applies for the job under the name of this girl. Lexi has very little experience when it comes to nannying. She used to babysit when she was younger, but she doesn't really have the credentials that this person who's details she has just stolen has. But she thinks, screw it. I need a break. I need to get out of here. What am I gonna do? And behold, Lexi actually gets the job, although she does lie and say that she is the girl from the train. And soon she finds herself in Jørenfjord in Norway with this single father with two little girls. He is designing this luxury cabin in Norway. He's an architect. And it turns out that his wife and mother to the two girls, she actually died in Norway while he was working on a similar project. Lexi takes surprisingly easy to her new job and she gets on well with the girls, but she is experiencing a lot of strange things. She thinks she's seeing this mysterious figure in their home and she's hearing things and just spooky things are going on in Jørenfjord. There are aspects of Norwegian folklore in this story. The author C.J. Cooke actually took bits and pieces here and there, and she has written stories of her own that she has sort of weaved into the narrative here. I thought this book was pretty reminiscent of books by Simone St. James. She does do that sort of thriller with an aspect of something other in them. There's also a dual timeline in this book where we have Lexi on one side and then we have the mother of the two girls, the one that passed away. She is also telling her story. I'm very sad to say that I was quite disappointed in The Nesting. I had high hopes for it. Like I said, I thought the Norwegian folklore bit was really interesting, but I think I might have enjoyed it more if the author had not made up stories of her own. They just did not feel true to me. That could be because I am a Norway native. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm also being a little bit too harsh. I don't know. But the plot really branches out in all directions, and there are a lot of things that just doesn't go anywhere. There are also a lot of characters that I just did not find believable or likable. Even Lexi, who, like I said, she goes through all that stuff in the beginning and you really feel for her, but she just doesn't come across as a very well-formed character for me. Also, the ending really let me down, so yeah, this one just wasn't for me. I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. Finally, we have Dark Matter by Michelle Paver, and this is another book that I've been meaning to read for a long time, and what better time to read it than in the winter. Dark Matter is Arctic horror. It has been described by some as M.R. James in the Arctic. It is a ghost story, and it is set in the time period between World War I and World War II. So historical fiction again, and once again we are in Norway, but this time we're on Svalbard in the Arctic. We have this group of British young men who set off on an expedition to Svalbard. They are setting off to the fictional Gruhuken, and Jack is of a different class than the rest of the group. He is not so sure if he wants to go along. He feels like he doesn't really fit in with the other guys who are more upper class, but he figures that this is an adventure that he needs in his life. He doesn't really have anything else going for him, and this is his one chance at like a big adventure. The story is actually told through his journal. He is the main character in the way that he is the one telling us this story. So we do end up having 3 men who go off on this expedition. They were originally a bigger group, but only these 3 ended up going. They also have a pack of huskies with them. They meet up with a Norwegian crew who take them to Gruhuken, but the captain is seemingly very reluctant to take them there in the beginning. He doesn't go out and say why, but he's just like, yeah, you shouldn't go out there. When the Norwegian crew depart and everything is ready for the expedition and setup, Jack thinks that he sees a man standing outside their cabin who does not belong to either group, but then he is gone just as soon as he appeared. One of the members of the expedition, Gus, he falls ill and he has to be taken away for medical help, and the other guy, what's his name? Argyle? He goes with Gus, and Jack ends up being back there by himself. But is he really alone? This book is absolutely beautiful. The descriptions of the nature, the wildlife is just really, really rich. Everything from like the birds and the polar bears and the foxes, the way the ice talks, like as Jack calls it, it almost makes you want to go to Svalbard. Almost. This kind of book is very, very divisive. It has a very, very slow build-up. There is not really much happening for a very long time. We do get descriptions of the daily life of this expedition, like what they're doing day to day, and we meet the huskies, all the beautiful huskies. So yeah, there is a very slow build-up, but it is of the kind where there is creeping dread that sets in, I would say about halfway. This is not a very long book. I think it's like 240 pages long. I personally found it very scary and also absolutely heartbreaking at times. I found myself crying at some point. Yeah, it's just, it really got to me. I myself am scared of the dark, and I would not last very long all by myself in the Arctic, I think. Or maybe it would like cure me. Maybe it would be like the end of my fear of the dark. Who knows? It's probably not something we're ever going to find out. I recommend Dark Matter for fans of historical fiction and ghost stories, especially those by M.R. James. I think that if you enjoy his stories, his classic ghost stories, you will enjoy Dark Matter very much. I certainly enjoyed it, and I gave it 4 stars. So there you have the wintry books that I've been reading recently. What have you been reading this winter? Have you been indulging in wintry titles like these or something completely different? Please let me know in the comments below. If you enjoy bookish videos like this one, unboxings and horror movie talk, I would really appreciate it if you stuck around and subscribed for more. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.